Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Vafa, aka the Registry Shredder. Thank you for joining me. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create bass tracks for your home metal recordings, even if you don't own a bass guitar. This tutorial is part of a series, so if you haven't seen my previous tutorials, be sure to do so, and of course, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future tutorials. Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to be going over software instruments for bass, and then I'll show you how to create the MIDI for your software instruments. Lastly, I'll show you a technique that I call guitar as bass, which is where you use a guitar to record a bass track. Just a quick disclaimer as always, I'm not some kind of authority figure in any way. I'm not a sound engineer, I'm not an expert, I'm not even a professional musician. I'm just trying to help out beginners who are dealing with this issue, and I could be wrong about a lot of this stuff. So, okay, on to the lesson. Before we go on, just for the full effect, be sure to listen on headphones. So the best tip I have for you is to just get yourself a bass guitar, even if it's a cheap one or if you have to borrow one from a friend. For most people, this is going to be the simplest, easiest way to add bass lines to your music, and again, for most people, it's going to be your best sounding option. With that out of the way, I understand that it's not always possible for everyone to own a bass guitar. It could be due to financial reasons, it could be due to, limited storage space, whatever, various reasons. So I won't bring this up again. Okay, software instrument for bass and MIDI. Let's just go over a quick demonstration. This is my original song. It's called Above the Filth. This song does have a real bass guitar in the main parts of the song, but there's a clean interlude where I use a software instrument bass because I thought it would just fit the part really well, and I thought it was a good change up to the overall tone. So let's just take a quick listen. Okay, so here it is in the full mix. All right, now let's solo the bass. So to do this, I just created a MIDI track for the bass line, and then I put that MIDI through a software instrument. This is a stock Logic instrument called Fretless Electric Bass. It's a sampled instrument, which means it's a real bass recording that's put into a software instrument. It's not synthesized, and I just added a very light chorus to it. To create the MIDI, I used something called a U-Rock guitar, and I had to do a ton of hand edits because the U-Rock guitar kind of sucks. If your DAW doesn't have a software instrument, or if you don't like the ones that are built into it, you could of course look into third-party software like Easy Bass by TuneTrack or Loki Bass by Solemn Tones, but these are not free. There may be some free ones out there you can search for example, Ample Bass P Lite. Personally, I have no experience using any of these. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at this bass instrument. So as you can see, here's the sampler. This is all Logic stock, Fretless Electric Bass. And let's just take a listen again. I'll turn off the chorus effect. And let's just turn off all the effects actually, except for the sampler. There's a compressor on there too. And as you can see, we could have chosen a bunch of different electric basses, like for example, let's say I picked one. Here's what it'll sound like. And here is the MIDI for this bass line. As you can see, I just went ahead and created it using something called the U-Rock guitar, and then I had to do a lot of hand edits. So if you want to do this for yourself, you just need to create the MIDI and then find software instrument to run it through. And then you can add whatever effects you want. You can use the same effects you would for a real bass guitar, like an amp, pedals, EQ, whatever. The nice thing about this approach is that you have a lot of flexibility with tones because you can try tons of different software instruments. However, the downsides are you have to deal with MIDI, and it can be kind of tedious to create and manage MIDI. Also, because it's MIDI, you will have to spend a lot of time editing the details to make it sound like a real natural bass performance. Okay, so let's cover how to create some MIDI. Creating and editing MIDI is complicated enough of a subject that will warrant its own separate tutorial, but in short, here's a few options. One, you could use a MIDI controller, which is usually like a keyboard type of instrument, or you could use something like this, which is the U-Rock guitar. This thing sucks, don't use this, don't buy this. They don't actually make this anymore, so it doesn't matter, but this thing sucks. But you can use it to create MIDI. Another option is to edit your MIDI by hand, which is, you can do it right in your DAW, or you could use something like Guitar Pro. And then another option is to record your guitar performance and use software to convert it into MIDI This is different than the guitar as bass approach, which we'll cover later on in this video. Okay, so once you have your MIDI, you're going to want to humanize it. So I suggest creating just a very basic MIDI track first. Don't worry about velocities, articulation, mixing, or any of that sort of stuff. Just get the notes down and then you can edit it later all you want. To make your MIDI track as human sounding as possible, mix up the note velocities, lengths, durations, add articulations, and combining all of these will help you get a more humanized kind of sound. Because human performances aren't 100% exact. And this is true not just for bass, but for pretty much any instrument that you're trying to simulate using MIDI. Your DAW should have some kind of functions like humanizing functions that can help you unquantize notes and make it just a little bit more like a natural human performance. And then of course some software instruments have articulations. In this case, that would be things like upstrokes or downstrokes, ghost notes and things like that. So you should add those to make your MIDI performance sound as human as possible. Okay, and last resort is a technique I call guitar as bass, which is where you record single root notes on your guitar and then transpose those down an octave. You can do this with a pitch shifter effect. This is definitely not going to be a great sounding method, but it's better than having no bass at all. And it is nice that you don't have to deal with MIDI at all, so it can be a decent option. I've never used this method on any of my original music, but I tried it for the purposes of this tutorial, and I was honestly pleasantly surprised with the results, but also let's just say I was pleasantly surprised with how bad it didn't sound. Okay, so next I'm going to show you a simple example. I've dual tracked some guitars for my song, The Eldritch Brain. I've re-recorded those tracks. I've chosen this part of the song because it has a pretty significantly different bass line than the rest of the guitars, so I wanted to make sure that the bass stands out from the guitars. So I'm going to record this guitar track as a bass track. Okay, so first let's just listen to the guitars soloed. All right, let's just go ahead and record the bass line. Okay, so let's listen to that by itself. Alright, so the first effect we're going to add is this pitch shifter, and this thing is going to basically make our guitar down-tuned. So as you can see, the important parts of this effect are the -12 semitones, which means 1 octave, and a bass guitar is 1 octave lower than a guitar. And the other important thing is mix 100%. We don't want to hear any of the dry, unprocessed tone, so this means it'll just be completely replaced with our down-tuned guitar. So let's just listen to that. Alright, so now I'm going to actually add the bass tone. I'm going to go ahead and put the same 2 easy mix tones that I had for my bass tone on my previous tutorial. Let's just turn those on. So as you can see, it doesn't sound like a bass, but it doesn't sound terrible either. Let's go ahead and listen to the thing in a full mix. All right, and if we listen to it muted, you can just hear how much low end is lost. So as you can see, you're definitely going to want to tweak your tone a lot, add some EQ. You probably want to process it a little bit differently than you would for a normal bass because it's technically not a bass guitar. It's a detuned electric guitar. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and please let me know if you had any questions or what you thought of it. And be sure to subscribe for more so you don't miss my future tutorials. And thank you for watching.